as we had said, tonight will be on chasing your dreams. What are going to be risks associated with that? Well, we always get things started off with kind of an update of what's going on around here. So, obviously, we were offline for 2 weeks at least, really about three, since we were preparing for the rabbit class that was 2 weekends ago.
So rabbit class went pretty well. We had 7 people come. A couple of those were repeats that had taken our class back in the fall. We did some other stuff this time, which was kind of fun. A girlfriend of mine came and helped teach, which was kind of cool. Because she brought a different perspective. Where we started with meat rabbits, and that was our focus. She came out of 4-H, so when she started doing stuff, the breeds that we've done were hugely different. She's started in Jersey Woolies and Himalayans and smaller rabbits, so it was an interesting perspective having her here. Saturday class went really well. We ran as long as we expected. We did the butchering demonstration. Saturday evening, the one group of local folks that came actually had a flat tire. So they it wasn't a big surprise they didn't come back for Sunday just because they were having vehicle problems. But Sunday morning, one of the attendees, like I said, is my friend, and another one was my cousin and her daughter. So we were up kind of late. Got up first thing Sunday morning to a ton of messages from her husband. Their horse had had a baby 2 weeks early. So that was something she wanted to be home for, something her husband wasn't real comfortable handling. So we shortened up Sunday class as far as, did some stuff that she hadn't seen before, and got them out of here at like 10 o'clock, give or take.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to me at the time, my friend who came to help was feeling a little off Saturday night, feeling a little more off Sunday morning, and didn't say anything that I really caught on to. And turns out, no, none of us got tested. I will admit none of us got tested, but by Monday night, I had a full-on fever for 48 hours, like sweating through my clothes fever. Never really lost taste buds, never really lost sense of smell. It's all been a little funky, as it does when you get sick a little bit. But one of her coworkers eventually tested positive for COVID. So we're pretty sure that's what it was. We were sick. I mean, don't get me wrong, neither one of us are 100% yet, even.
Mm-hmm.
And that started the 17th.
Yeah. So it's been
just over 2 weeks now.
About 17 days so far, I believe. I would count it as 17.
Yeah, something close to that. So, it's been interesting. I mean, I guess neither one of us has had a huge appetite, so I don't pay attention to the scale. I think it's a dangerous trap for women. But Kanan noticed he'd lost about 8 pounds in 2 weeks. And we did our best to stay hydrated and all that fun stuff. It was interesting because we had such varying symptoms.
Yeah.
And the symptoms that my friend and her boyfriend ended up having and the symptoms we had never coincided. Like, she actually did lose her taste and smell on day 9, which is weird.
Yeah.
And then her boyfriend was really, really tired and really lethargic. But she, for the most part, kept working, just thinking it was a regular flu, that she wasn't all that sick. And so it's been interesting. It's definitely been interesting. But what that means is a lot of things around here kind of got put on hold. As you can see, I'm desperately behind at getting the garden in. And now the last couple of days, we've been in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
So it's been really hot, really early. On top of everything, so as we were scrambling to get the rabbit class ready, our goats decided to start kidding season a full week and a half early. So we were having goats when we were not supposed to be having goats. And we are mostly done already because we tend to breed in a pretty big group. So we did lose 3 kids this year. Had one mother with some kind of udder issue that is kind of feeding her kids but not really getting the job done. So Kanan is supplementing them. One of the other does rejected her kids. We lost one. That's one of the 3. And then he's having to feed the other one entirely. So we have a little bottle buckling Nigerian dwarf, which is so irritating. I'm not a big bottle baby fan. Our kinder does, so we've mentioned before that we have a trio of registered kinders. We have a buck and 2 does. Last year was a disaster. We got one little buckling out of the one doe, and the other doe had some kind of complications and lost hers. This year, we have 3 beautiful doelings. They are just beautiful. So now I'm going to have to make some decisions on who we're going to keep. Total right now, like I said, we have 1 crossbred doe still waiting to go, and we think 1 Nigerian dwarf. We, for the first time ever, had 2 of our Nubian does actually miss, which is very unusual. So we only had 6 out of 8 of our girls bred. Haven't lost any of the Nubians, so we have 11, but 7 of them are boys. So we had lots and lots of boys this year. On the Nigerian dwarfs, we have 2 and 2, 2 boys, 2 girls. And on the kinders, like I said, we got all 3 girls. And then on that crossbred, so we use a kinder buck on top of a Homestead goat project that I've been working on for a while. She threw 2 boys. So, of course, they're going to... I got that kind of room for boys. Boys stink after a while, so I don't need that many boys. So that's been a big thing. Last year we had to pull a whole bunch of kids, so it's been nice this year. Nobody has needed assistance. They've handled their business on their own, which is what we like. I don't keep a lot of goats that need a lot of help. On the other side of things, with the birds, it's been horrible.
Yeah.
Our power issues have continued to get bad. We are waiting on batteries. So we are waiting on that to come in. And because of that, we've had some power problems, lost a whole bunch of stuff in the incubator. And when I say a bunch of stuff, I mean like we hatched out 70 quail and we're down to 7 just from power issues and not being able to keep the brooder plate on when the week it was 50 degrees. So this week it's warm enough that they would have been fine, but they hatched out the week before. So turkeys are starting to hatch a little bit. I am dialing stuff back because we are having a lot of trouble selling anything. Where we're at, for some reason, birds are not moving this year. Not sure what the issue is, especially if you're paying attention to how many food prices are going up, and of course, the latest thing being the meat packer plants getting shut down and hacked. That's kind of the big thing. I had to put the rabbit breeding on hold for a little while. One, because I was too sick to do anything, which I'm kind of glad I have because it's been so hot. Usually once you get past the first really hot days of the year, the rabbits all kind of settle in and get used to the fans and the misters and all that kind of stuff. So I will be back to breeding this week. And we'll just kind of play it by ear. If it's going to be a really hot summer, we might try and breed one more round, but be done by early July. I don't like to put too much stress on the does if it's going to be really hot. And right now it's looking like a yo-yo. This year is looking kind of crazy. Yep. What's new on your end?
I don't know. I because I handle the power, I would say that there were like 2 days in there I was ready to burn that whole system to the ground because I couldn't figure out what the problems were. So essentially, we had made the video, we've talked about it before, that our solar storage batteries are at the end of their life. And when I mean they're at the end, we had to pull out, 2 days ago, we pulled out 2 of them. One was leaking, it was heating. It would basically had a dead cell. It was, I mean, it was getting so hot. It was boiling itself dry in a couple days, and the case was starting to leak. So I had to disconnect that. We put in some older batteries that we'd already taken out because they were kind of not doing great. And then we are running the generator for a good hour to hour and a half at night just to top off the batteries until about 10:30ish or so, somewhere in that range. We go to bed and they stay good until about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning when the sun hits the panels and everything kind of wakes up and gets charged. So we ordered batteries about 3.5 weeks ago, and I made the mistake of waiting too long because I'd never thought batteries would be a sticky situation to get them. I didn't anticipate this.
Like everything else
like
now.
everything else, I put it off. I'll admit that. I thought it was going to be just to hit Google, go in there, figure out what I wanted, and place the order, and they would be here in 3 days or something like that, on demand kind of deal. So because we have an older system, I did contact the manufacturer, ask them what their recommendations were, and tell them kind of what I wanted to do, and they told me that what I intended to do was not going to work because of our older equipment. So we had to change plan a little bit. So we are going away from the flooded lead acid into some AGM batteries. I can't get this thing to load.
Okay,
So
I'm gonna move it. You keep talking.
okay. So I did find something. I knew the power requirements, the size of the batteries I wanted. They gave me a good recommendation on it. I hit Google. I found one that was the lowest price, and they actually are out of Arizona now. Sorry. I did order what I needed, and it's going to be good for us. But what I didn't intend is that they were not going to have them in stock, and they got right back to me and just said, "Hey, by the way, we have a stocking order coming in maybe the first or second week of June. If you want to keep the order." And so I just thought, okay, that's fine. Let's keep the order, and we will go forth. In the meantime, I was, over there hitting every result I could find that stocked these kind of batteries. And what I found out is that this company, having their standing order to come into their warehouse, was going to be the best deal. Like 4 weeks in, they were also the lowest price, which is good. I have talked to literally every other company that could order them into, I guess, really in the U.S. from coast to coast, and I got ranges back from it would be at least 16 or more weeks, which is 4 months. I had somebody tell me it would be 26 weeks to get a set of batteries in that I wanted. It was going to be from I think I paid like $387 per battery, and I needed 12 of them to do the system I want. And that went, I think the highest end from there was 509 with somebody else, and they were like 4 weeks out. So
It's raining.
it is raining. I can't believe it.
A little thunderstorm action today.
Yep. So we're about a week away from getting those batteries, hopefully.
Sit down.
No, is that or is that a quad?
No, that was a dog.
Okay. Anyway, the battery should be here within 1 to 2 weeks. We've got a system that works. We're temporarily limping this thing along, and I will do a full video on the new setup. I've already kind of sketched it out in design. We're going to have to expand the battery box as it sits today just to fit these other batteries in because they're a different size and shape. I've got to get a couple extra cables made to make it work, but these things are supposed to last. Now, granted, I already knew what kind of power we use. I already know what kind of temperature swings I see, what we'll have to change. So I'm expecting these to last almost 12 or more years with their current situation, unless there's some kind of manufacturer defect. But based on the number of cycles, and a cycle is a day, I've already done all the calculations. These should be maintenance free, literally no water to check. You overcharge them 4 hours every year, and these should be good until hopefully the mid 2030s. So we'll find out how long they're going to last, but I'll explain it all.
Elijah said it's raining there too. He said, "Sorry, but is there a rooster crowing in your house?"
Kind of. I've got the door open, so out here, probably 50 feet away, there is a chicken pen.
It's a little closer than that even. The golden lace whiteouts are right outside.
Yeah, so it's hot in the house. It's 95 or 6 outside, which makes the house somewhere in the high 70s because we don't have AC.
Yeah.
So we've got a door open right here onto my right, and with some chickens, so we can kind of get.
They hear us, and that's
Yeah.
their way of trying to get our attention because it's getting close to dinner time. So if they get too obnoxious, we'll close the window. But yeah. So that's kind of in a nutshell what's been going on around here. I mean, fires are breaking out all over.
Yeah, it's a daily event.
There's 2 fires like half an hour from us right now. It's going to be a bad one this year. It really is. It's going to be a bad one. I mean, there's not much more you can say about it, right? It's going to be a bad fire season. I don't see any way around it. We are extremely dry, single-digit humidity already. I am watering what little garden I have in already, watering it twice a day because in the morning, if you water it, it's evaporated by noon. And if you water it in the evening, it's still so dry that it's drying out during the night. And by, this morning, 9 o'clock, it was 80 degrees already.
Yeah.
So, and we're going to be back in the 60s by early next week. So it's the typical drop off kind of thing. Which means we're not sure for how much longer our hip camp will be allowed to have fires. Right now they're saying no outside burning unless it's contained and we have fire pits and all that. So we're kind of watching that as a day by day. The meadow where we have our campsites still fairly green.
Yeah.
So we're kind of keeping an eye on that. But that's kind of the big thing. We spent a lot of time sleeping. And I mean, probably...
I don't know.
I know there were 2 days in there, literally, that I slept 18 hours in a day because I was so tired and so sick. So we're glad to be doing better. Still can't make it through a day without a nap. We're down to like 2-hour naps, so we're improving. But yeah, still can't make it through a day without a nap.
I'm glad to be able to eat. There was a period in there that was like 48 hours that I could literally have zero anything in my stomach. That was like a Thursday, Friday, but I tell you what, it was like 70 degrees outside, and I couldn't walk.
Yeah.
Really from here, 50 yards, 40 yards, or whatever to the turkey pen.
Without throwing up.
Without throwing up, because literally sweat through my clothes, so hot. It was unbelievable how much my body could not regulate temperature. Yeah.
I will say this, if you haven't had COVID, we don't, at this point, especially right now, we have no intention of getting a shot. We don't really need to. We just inadvertently built our own immunity.
Yeah, by accident.
It's a doozy. And we don't get sick very often, but yeah, it's a doozy.
Yeah, anyway. All right. I think that's an update, right? That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So now on top of all of this, on top of everything going on, my girlfriend that came and helped me teach class, we made an offer to. So she is a bit of a country. She grew up outside of Eugene. If you know where Eugene, Oregon is, Junction City.
I think you're getting way ahead, aren't you? Weren't we going to tell the stories of?
No.
Okay.
No, because I think people need to understand what else has been going on top of all this. So while she was here helping me teach, we made her an offer. She has been wanting to get into doing some small scale farming type stuff. If you know anything about real estate right now, you know that country prices are through the roof. Not just in Oregon. She looked at several different states. We've looked at Kentucky and Tennessee and some of the places that we used to live, and real estate it's
It's
so high
bonkers. Just bonkers.
and selling tremendously quickly. So she's been wanting to do this. When she moved back in the fall, she could not find anything. The best she could get was a small house with a yard, or I think maybe a duplex. I can't remember. Anyway, she's got a small yard, so she's doing the garden thing a little bit. But she can't have quail. She can't have her rabbits. I brought all this home with me back in the fall. And she's a smart cookie. She just turned 30. She's a smart cookie, and she can see the writing on the wall with a lot of this kind of stuff. Then she's a little bit worried about meat prices and everything. So she has been wanting to do sheep and get back into some ducks and everything. So, as we've mentioned in these videos before, I desperately need some help, right? He's back to working part-time, and there's a lot of stuff going on the farm that we're still trying to get stuff done, trying to get stuff wrapped up in the next year or so. So we offered her a position, not a great amount of money for employment, but a chance to live out here, a chance to do whatever it is that she wanted. She was going to basically work with me half the week, and we were going to give her a couple of acres of land to do what she wanted with while she was here. The amount of money we had was basically enough to cover her bills. She didn't have a lot of bills.
But it was going to give her some extra also, that if she wanted to, take a couple days off and go on vacation, because it to go from, I'll say, a 9 to 5 to where you're doing thing as your leisure kind of deal, and you just kind of have to water your garden or whatever, to do your full time. You've got a massive garden, you've got greenhouses, you've got animals. It's a transition, and I would say that the point of it was to cover the bills that she would have.
Yeah.
And to give her extra money that she would be able to buy herself any kind of tools that she wanted, or if she needed some extra money for any animals that she purchased or brought here. I mean, just to jump in and not be like, oh my gosh, I need to go do something and I have no money.
Yeah. So we made her this offer. We gave her a month to decide. She's already come back and said, for other reasons, that she thinks she's probably not going to do it. Which is funny, because when she had shown up here, one of the first things she said to me is, would you guys take on a couple of city people, meaning her and her boyfriend? And I said, well, I kind of need to meet the boyfriend. They've been dating 2 years. And I said, I don't necessarily say no, but I really don't want somebody living on my property that I don't know either. Yeah. So, and I don't know what his situation is. She hasn't really said. So,
anyway, so we really sat down and thought about this. It was, we know that we could use a third person here to help, because I'm not always available to be able to do everything with Nikki. And then, it was kind of like a good fit. It was somebody that she's, like Nikki said, she's smart. She's very capable. While you would have to help kind of transition her where she is now is a little bit better and probably easier growing season. You would have to transition it to what it takes to grow here where we are.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of difference, to get her set up, but we felt like we had everything that she could do, right? She could live out kind of like all the things that she wanted to do. She didn't have to buy land because we already had it. We have a tractor. We have a quad. We have trucks and trailers. She has a 4-door sedan. So when she, I need, if she said, I need to go to town to buy blank, it's like, okay, well, let's just plan it. We'll hook up the truck and trailer and go.
So the reason I mention all this is kind of the theme is what would you be willing to do to chase your dream? And I've been talking to her since yesterday when she said, oh, I think I'm going to pass. and there's a lot of different schools of thought on this, but what she says, this is a dream of hers. How far are you willing to go to follow the things that you want to do? I think most people will tell you that there is never a better time to get into farming than today, right? Regardless of what the market does, farming is hard. Farming is physically demanding. And as we've seen everything going up, farming is probably not going to get any cheaper. So what would you do to follow? She claims it's a dream of hers. How far are you willing to go? And what I've come away with this in the last day or so is I don't feel that she's willing to go far enough to follow her dream. She's a little bit more I not willing to take the risk, I guess, is the big thing.
It's kind of like we had 4 stories, because I sat and thought about this for the live stream, thinking back, what have Nikki and I done that you would, a lot of people that know the backstory of a lot of things we've done really kind of look at it and be like, y'all are insane. There's no way I would have done this. So I really thought about all the times we've made these major jumps on, I'll call it a leap of faith, that we thought, what, if things go really bad, we'll still get through it. But if things go really good, we're going to look like geniuses. Yeah,
I don't know about
geniuses. All right. So the first one going back, we go back, Nikki, if nobody knows the story between Nikki and I, think back way back to 1997. I know it's the last century, but back then there were no chat rooms really. There was these DOS-based programs and that. We met online. Nikki was 18, fresh out of high school.
I was still in high school.
Oh, she was still in high school. She hadn't graduated yet. I was a few years older, and I was in college. So we met online, chatted for a few months. She flew out to see me. So her first time on a plane. A few months later after that, after I had gone out and met her parents out here in Oregon, she picked up literally everything she owned, or most things she owned, packed them into a
1979 Chevy Bonanza.
Single cab, long bed, 3/4 ton or 1 ton big monster gas guzzling truck.
3/4 ton.
And drove it 1,800 miles to move from Oregon to Colorado to be where I was. Now, that was pretty crazy, right? I won't say I was chasing the dream, but I mean, you basically.
I wanted to get out and see the world. So my dad's side of the family, and really my mom's, are all in Oregon, or for the most part, they're all in Oregon, or right over the border into Washington.
Yeah.
Or I had an aunt that was right over into Redding. So yeah, I was searching for adventure, I guess.
Right. So it's kind of crazy. So I would say that was probably the first big, what are you willing to risk? Well, I literally packed all of my stuff up in a box, and your parents came out, and so they brought some stuff. And
yeah, the next summer. Yeah.
Yeah. So you pretty much took everything of pretty much value, packed it up into a truck.
At 18, you don't own a lot.
That's true. But she drove 1,800 miles in a truck that didn't get great gas mileage.
In days, now think about that a little bit. 1997, so no cell phones.
Right.
My truck got about 11
miles a gallon on a highway.
Because it had a 454 big block. And
it wasn't even
no
that
GPS.
No GPS.
Right? So I had an Atlas, great big Atlas.
And it wasn't even in that good condition. I mean, it ran.
It's a great truck.
It was a great truck. I mean, it's probably somewhere in a junkyard now, unfortunately. But it's one of those trucks, like, it ran, but you knew this thing had lived hard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, it had been all over the place. It had been my uncle's truck. It was my dad's truck. Yeah. I mean, it did. But I loaded. And what was awesome about it is the day before I left, I had been drag racing it at the local drag track because she ran an 1/8 mile pretty good. So raced all weekend, loaded up, drove my stuff.
Yep.
Around Halloween, showed up in Fort Collins, Colorado to snow.
Yep.
Big snow.
Yep.
I'd never driven in snow before, but I drove from Oregon to Colorado in snow. And it was just, I wanted more out of my life than what I thought I could find in Central Oregon.
Yep. So you take that for 2 years. You worked 3 jobs, lived on in a rough apartment there in a college town.
Yep.
Worked 3 jobs until I graduated college, and then we made the decision that I, being the new graduate, was going to buy a motorcycle, and we decided to chase my dream of being a country music musician. So we moved to Nashville, Tennessee. So we packed up a U-Haul and a trailer, and you at that time had your little Datsun truck. So we had a U-Haul with a trailer that had a Datsun pickup in it, and in the bed of the pickup was my motorcycle. I drove that, and then she drove her big block Chevy truck. We got all the way to about St. Louis or Kansas City.
Right outside of Kansas City.
Right outside of Kansas City.
Transmission died.
The truck basically overheated, and the transmission in her big block Chevy decided that it would eat itself internally. So we eventually, after getting quotes of how long it was going to take to rebuild the transmission and do everything else, we abandoned the truck. A salvage company, basically came and bought it for like $300 because the transmission was thousands of dollars, I think, or over $1,000.
Oh yeah, we were too broke to.
Yeah, so we stayed in a hotel for the night. We literally took everything of value and stuffed it somewhere in everywhere else, and we left the big block in Kansas City, drove on to Nashville, and then so we got there. We didn't have jobs. We had enough money that we stayed in a little condo kind of complex, like a little apartment building, for 3 months. You worked at Kmart, right? Is that what we talked about?
Yeah, I went to work for Kmart for a while, and then the pet store, and then I got into office work.
Right, and I had trouble getting a job as a fresh college graduate, so I changed oil at Valvoline, a little oil change place, because it was something I could easily be capable of. Been doing it for a long time by that point, about 10 years. So I changed oil and worked for a motorcycle company there in town, and then I got into automotive and did all that. So we were in Nashville for the Nashville area for about 6 years.
Yeah. Kaden decided he was not good at being a struggling artist.
Yes.
So we bought 12 acres.
Yep.
And went and did the farm thing because that's what I wanted to do. And so that's what we did. And so when we say we've been homesteading for a long time, we bought that place in 2000.
Yep. 2000.
And it was a slow evolution. I did geese there. We brought the llamas from Oregon. That was really the only things that we really did as we, we were both working full-time jobs and trying to pay for a place back when interest rates were, 12.25%.
Yeah, I think we got like 11 or 12% on the thing. We were like, man, that's a good rate.
It was, and it was an old double wide, and our insurance was crazy high, like $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to do a whole lot there, but we did quite a bit.
Yeah.
We helped our neighbor a lot, learned a lot of things about pain and the rest of it. So.
Yeah. So that was kind of like, I'm gonna say, the end of move 2. Or the big jump of chasing our dreams, because that's where we kind of got into the call it small scale farming, but we still had full-time jobs between us, and it was always like back and forth, and we were there just about 5 years, and that's when I got the call that I got an offer to move to Mississippi. So the big Chasing the Dream 3 was that for 5 years, I really wanted to work for Nissan directly in one of their factories. I had tried for 5 years to get into the Tennessee factory. I worked for 2 different suppliers to them. But there was kind of like an unwritten rule that they didn't want to hire from their supplier base because if you pull all the best talent out of your supplier base, you're kind of hurting yourself. So they didn't really make it a good habit or make it a bad habit to pull out people out of there. I ended up having to go down to Mississippi a lot. The second supplier I worked for had a lot of quality problems, just honestly, and I got asked to take over an assignment down there that was really struggling. I went down there, did a really good job, got everything fixed up, all the kind of the bad name taken out of there, and they ended up saying, we don't have a problem hiring. We have a problem hiring good people or finding good people. I knew somebody down there that I'd worked with previously that had got into management, and a couple interviews later, we had a fantastic job offer to move to Mississippi, and so our big transition 3 was that I packed up as much as I could in my little Ranger pickup, and I stayed with some friends I knew.
Well, and again, remember my dream at this time is still to do the farm thing.
Right.
So we had to find property. We
Yep.
ended up finding 10 acres.
Yep.
And that's where we really started doing a lot of our like chickens and geese and ducks
and turkeys.
And we got the goats and the Pyrenees, and I learned how to can at that house.
Yeah.
So it was at some point his dream was harder to come by because it was a very certain job.
Right.
But yeah, we just went for it.
Well, I mean, it was a very good offer. I mean, I will say the salary up front wasn't the greatest, but the externals to it, I think the benefits package was a little bit better, and it had a huge amount of growth to the career, which is what I wanted from a career standpoint, from a 9 to 5 kind of deal. And so we found the ways to make it work. She wanted property, and I didn't mind driving to there, so we found a place that was 10 acres in a pretty good neighborhood. Had I would say good, not bad neighbors. We didn't really talk to our neighbors a lot because everybody had property and they all had different businesses and life.
They were moving, like the one house was always moving.
Yeah.
We lived there for not quite 10 years, and I think we went through 4 neighbors. At one point, it was abandoned for like 2 years.
Yeah. But I mean, it was a jump. It was an area where everybody, thankfully, it was an area that they would bring in. They were willing to pay to relocate people that had a good shot at a long career.
So, Aislinn Fox says, in many ways, the less you start with, the easier it is to follow your dreams. You have less at risk. I, for the most part, would agree with that to a point.
Yeah.
And this is one conversation, so I'll stop us before we get to the 4th story, but this is a conversation that I had with my girlfriend the other day, or at least was trying to get across, and it's very hard typing. I hope she's going to come down and we can talk in person some more, but remember that everything in your life is stuff. The only thing you have is time.
Yeah.
Money comes and goes, tractors come and go, houses come and go. For that matter, to a certain degree, the people in our lives come and go, right? The only thing we have is time. Everything can be downsized. And we know this because when we left Mississippi, I got rid of everything except for like 5 goats and 2 dogs.
Yeah,
and that was it.
It was literally, it was a 2-shot deal. I mean, we
moved half the farm because for me, and then he followed a year later when
we moved a moving truck and the animals in one deal because it was a 1-shot deal for Nikki. I mean, she came out, thankfully we had a house.
Yeah.
She got out here
by plan and by design.
By design, and I stayed back in Mississippi. We literally took 3 days to get here.
Yeah.
Driving. I took a week off of work, and we had already packaged and staged up, left everything, had somebody stay down in Mississippi with animals that were basically staying there that we were leaving in Mississippi. And and I stayed at the house for a year. So we moved out everything she needed and basically stripped down my life, left to things I could sell because I didn't need them anymore and I had time to get rid of them. And
or just enough to stage out the house because
yeah,
they tell you not to have an
right,
empty
you don't want a
house.
bare house. So, and I still live there, so I stripped it down to the essentials to where it looked good, but I could also still live there and function on a minimum level.
And to a degree, this is what I see a lot of people that are trying to do the homesteading thing right now. Is there's a lot of people who have sold everything and are moving cross country.
Yeah.
And just giving it a go,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I don't know that I don't know that I agree necessarily that the less you have, the easier it is. I think you either have the personality and the drive to go do the things that you want to do, regardless, let the chips fall where they may, or you don't.
Yeah, but I'll agree. Having less stuff, it's harder to get rid of stuff to downsize to move. But if you really want it, I mean, it's what it is.
Yeah.
And really, so the fourth thing we were going to talk about was the move here. And after 10 years, I was down there and I had the aspirations I had for that job and my career, I kind of checked the box of. I got to where I was one of the higher level engineers in the curriculum. I got into management, which was one of my personal aspirations. I wanted to see how I could do it, if I could do it. And at that point, it started affecting my health because I'm the type that I can't let things go very well.
A personality.
I'm an A++ personality, and it was starting to affect my life and our marriage. I mean, she was working a full-time job for a while that had ranging shifts. She had a career path if she wanted to take it, and I had a different career path, and I had international travel, and it was two ships sailing in the night that we a lot of times were in the same house together, but not really there together.
Yeah.
And so we made the decision that, it was a point where if we would have probably stayed on that path, we wouldn't be here together. There's no doubt. I think we both agreed on that we were not going to stay together if we both stayed with our careers and what we were trying to do. So we ended up changing, and Nikki's dad ended up being diagnosed with cancer.
Seemed like the perfect time to come back.
Yeah, it was a great reason to consider doing something else, and we decided, you know what? On a whim, I'm going to say on a whim, her parents had said, after keeping this house here that we're in, that for years they were kind of like, just, I don't know what we're going to do. And they said, we think we're going to sell it. And we're like, whoa, hold on. And
they had already moved to Goldendale, Washington.
Yeah.
So this became, a 6-hour drive?
Yeah, this was not a good option for them anymore.
Wasn't a convenient vacation house anymore. So yeah,
we flew out here for a Thanksgiving. Wasn't it Thanksgiving?
Yes. And we never came to, the idea was not necessarily to come here and stay. This was a landing spot to come back into Oregon and decide what we wanted to do. Because I hadn't lived here since I was 18.
Right.
He'd never lived in Oregon. So we were trying to decide. But once we got here, this was the perfect spot, I thought, to really do the homesteading thing.
Yeah.
It does not get any more off the beaten path than this, really. I'm sure you could be much further out than we are. But being solar and well water and limited internet.
But it was a big risk because we literally took everything, and by that point it was 2014 when you moved, and 15 when I moved.
Something like that, yeah.
Or in that, no, somewhere in that range. But at that point, we had already, been through 2 different houses. We had equity built up in each that we took those kind of the profits, moved forward. Yes, thank you. No.
We basically walked away from $100,000 a year salary.
Yeah. We combined with everything. We decided to literally walk away from a 6-figure salary between us, or I was getting pretty close there at the end on my own.
Yeah.
Between a 6-figure salary and a house that we could afford it. It was a little bit more than we wanted to pay, and the insurance on it was kind of crazy in that. But we literally just like, we sold off, downside, gave away half of everything we owned. We walked away from jobs, and when we moved out here, when I turned in my notice, Nikki was already gone. She'd been gone a year. I finally turned in my notice, and everybody's like, "What are you gonna go do?" And I was like, "I have no idea," because I'm from a manufacturing / engineering background, and where we are, there is literally a convenience store that is being held together with duct tape. There is no manufacturing to speak of on the volume I was used to. I became a fish out of water up here. I was from a very high volume, high automated industry, and there's nothing here for me.
Yeah.
So, we basically downsized, gave away, walked away from literally everything to live in a house that was half of what we had before.
And actually a little smaller even than half.
Yeah.
So the point of all this is not to say, look at us, look how brave we are, or anything goofy. But the question becomes, how far are you willing to go?
Right.
And how much are you willing to, I won't say suffer. How much are you willing to...
I'm going to say risk. I like the word risk.
To risk. To do the things that you say you want to do in life. And I guess we've come from some jobs that, we all work these jobs that are, we know that the ends kind of justify things, right? When you read the things about how many people actually like their jobs, the numbers are actually really small. Most of us get into a career path or a job to make money, to do the other things we want to do. So and this is what we've been struggling with for a couple weeks now, is, again, my girlfriend wants to do, not necessarily to the size that we're doing things here, and not necessarily all the same things. She wants to do ducks where I do chickens. She wants to do sheep where I do goats. That's fine. But knowing how high land prices are, and that she's not going to be able to afford a bunch of this stuff, it's been hard for me to wrap my head around. I mean, she's a single gal. She does have a boyfriend, but they don't live together. She's got money set aside. She's got the finances to do stuff. And it's a fairly low risk situation. We're smart enough to say, hey, we're not all going to live in the same house together. We were going to make her spot with a travel trailer, which would be hers. It's, the idea behind it was to give her the opportunity to try these things, because like she's told me before, I think I can make an income, and I think I could actually, do this farm. And so we gave her a really low risk opportunity, and I kind of feel like she's letting fear hold her back. I think that she's basically deep down not sure that she could do the things that she says she's going to.
Well,
I don't know.
Her personality is a little bit more mine. She's got a more of an analytical, pragmatic. I shouldn't say pragmatical. It's not a word. Pragmatic. Just making up the English language here. She and I sat down and talked for probably an hour on Sunday about this idea, because what I wanted to do is to look at it from her situation. She has a job that she doesn't like. She doesn't like it, but she's got career goals. And I understand that, because at a certain point, I did like my job. I saw value in it. There was a point towards the end, though, that I did not like my job. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't exactly, if we would have stayed there, I wouldn't have left, to go do something else. It I had let my aspirations get me to a point where I became very good at my job, but I couldn't get away from the stress of it. I couldn't leave it alone. And
So I'm going to read a couple comments
okay.
to this. So Elijah said, if you put your mind to it and can see a goal you want to accomplish, then you can reach it, which I totally agree. Green Tiger Freak says it's a hard thing to follow a dream. You can want something so bad, but sometimes it takes some of that time to reach. And that was kind of, without getting into too much of her situation, I don't know that long term I really see her buying the farm that she thinks she's going to. But the idea was we were going to, it wasn't like we were just, I say that we're not doing it out of the kindness of our heart. We are and we aren't. She's a very dear friend of mine, but I needed help too. So it was a mutually beneficial type thing. She was going to get the opportunity to do these things today that she wants to do, because like I said, there is no better time to start farming than now. Anybody who's read Salatin or any of the other books that are out there about starting a homestead or a farm, man, we're all getting older. It doesn't get any easier from here, and she's already 30, and I've told her that it may be 5 years before I got past 30. It was slow and gradual, but once you hit 40, the slope down starts to get a little steeper.
The hardest thing, so the thing that there's some, the financial piece to all of this is one thing that she and I, her friend and I, or our friend, or we're gonna call it, had this conversation. She has, saved up a lot to try and buy a farm, and the scary part about it is that as much as she wants to, put a down payment on a farm, but in order to afford that farm, she will have to keep a full-time job.
Right.
So she is going to sign up for a situation that she can never afford to do what she wants to do because of the financial requirement.
Well, not only that, but time, right? Getting stuff done, as we know, and we're here all the time, is a full-time gig.
Yeah.
And I was trying to make her understand, and I don't know that I got through per se. She was looking for up to $200,000 for a house to do a bunch of stuff, but no place is going to be set up the way you want it, right? So now you're talking even more infrastructure costs and time. And if you're working full time, it's really hard to come up with some of this other stuff. And I'm going to read a couple of these before we go on.
Okay.
So Dennis M had 3 good comments. Dennis said, my late father once told me that we should dream and set goals, but appreciate what we have in the current day, and do not focus on something that may be one day, but appreciate what is today. And I do agree with that. He also says, fear is paralyzing, faith is not.
Agreed.
And you may want to mention to your friend that we should never get so busy making a living that we forget to make a life.
Agreed.
And that is a lesson that I will say that I don't know that either one of us got until he was almost 40 and I was about 35 when we moved out here. And that's what had happened to us in Mississippi. He was working for Nissan and was often gone 6 a.m. to 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then on weekends. And I was working for Lowe's full 40 hours a week plus half an hour to work and half an hour home. So by the time you have lunches in there and everything, do any shopping, I was gone 12 hours a day. And what we found is, we bought 10 acres and wanted to do this homesteading type farm thing, and we had no time. In Mississippi, I will say, we had a lot of yard there too, and you had to mow like every 4 days. I mean, I think I spent more time in my life cutting grass, and that's part of why we like living in the desert, because I don't have to cut grass here. It was like a full-time gig just to cut the grass all the time. Doesn't matter how many animals I ran on it.
But it didn't matter because the house we had a pool that, God, it must have took me 4 years to finally get that pool to where I didn't feel like every day it was about to algae bloom and just get out of control.
Yeah, we had a pool there too.
Yeah, I had a pool, and anyway.
So, I have a family of 9.
Wow. Okay.
Finding it hard to move to the country. Husband wants to establish a home business first.
That's gonna be fun.
Man, I don't know what to tell you there, because if you're looking at rural land prices right now, they're crazy. They're crazy. And part of that is we were reading an article that was talking about the fact that the media did a very good job at making everybody very afraid of COVID, to the point where people are leaving apartment buildings because they're afraid to ride in elevators with people.
Yeah.
So what you see is land prices going absurd in some places. And what it is people coming from some of these western states that are very expensive, and they're moving to places like Tennessee, where the land costs have been down, and they are driving the costs up.
Right.
They do say that the real estate bubble is going to pop like it did in 06, 08. But as food prices go up, the thing I read yesterday said that banks are already starting to reconfigure their algorithm. It's always been that your mortgage can't exceed 40% of your income or whatever. As inflation drives everything up, they're now saying that may come down to 25%, which means it's gonna change the game of buying property for a lot of people.
Well, and we've looked at inflation stuff, so we've watched numbers and different things, and they said the average family last year was spending 9% of their gross intake on food. By the end of 2021, that is supposed to be 30 or 40? 40%. So that's going to be 300% increase on food costs.
Which, if you eat a lot of beef, is probably the case.
Yeah. Gasoline, they're projecting that July 4th could go up $1 per gallon where you are, no matter where you are in the U.S.
Which I'm hoping not.
Yeah.
Elijah said we used to have a small flock of Romany. They're wonderful, but sheep can be quite high maintenance. The hair ones aren't bad, though. We still have one old ewe left, but I'll stick to my goats. And that's kind of how I feel about. I did llamas for years. I raised llamas from 1993. I want to say 93 or 92. And we actually still have 2 old llamas that hang around here. And man, I'll tell you what, shearing. At one point, we had in Tennessee, we had 18 or 19, and you have to shear them in the South. You'll kill them if you don't. And it was a full-time gig, man.
Yeah.
By the time shearing season was over, nothing worked. Wrist didn't work, back didn't work, and that was in my 20s. I can't imagine trying to keep up with it now.
Yeah.
What my girlfriend's looking at is Icelandics. And they're smaller sheep. I've been reading on them because, like I said, we were going to let her bring some here. So I've been kind of looking at them, and they're funny because she doesn't like goats. But Icelandics seem to be very goat-like in their behavior compared to a lot of sheep. But, yeah, to me personally, I read through it, and it to me, it's more maintenance. A lot more maintenance.
Yeah.
So
go back to some of the financial stuff. The offer was, yes, obviously that if she could stay in the house here, but everybody wants their personal space, so she was going to eventually buy a trailer that she could live in. And if you've looked for anything like that, up fee of a brand new one, Nikki's parents actually were talking about selling one of theirs, and we had a good look through it. It would probably be a good fit. It's a decent size for a person.
And they like her enough. They probably would have made her a halfway decent deal.
So it was kind of like, it's the one, you can't see it through the windows, but it's literally sitting outside these windows. So it was like here, it's already clean.
Yeah. It'd be fine for a person and a dog.
Yeah, it'd be fine for a person and a dog. For power, it's got batteries, and we actually have one or two of the Harbor Freight solar kits that we used when we first moved here. So it would have power. You'd have that. We'd figure out she could have her own shower, her own bathroom, and
Yeah, it's got a bathroom in it.
So we talked about the salary, kind of the stipend, kind of deal. Her biggest thing was that she's now got a 401k and she wants to keep investing. So she was looking for a way to make more money than what we were paying, and I understood that. So some of the other thing was, here on the YouTube channel, we know we're monetized. I don't know that she was really having this discussion, but I was thinking, we already release stuff content Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, which, we space them out. But I was
when
thinking,
we're not dying of the plague.
who says that?
I'm just saying. No,
Oh.
when we're not dying of the
when we're
plague,
not dying of the plague.
we
Okay, yeah.
remember.
But I had thought her story could be really, really good. You take somebody that kind of was in the 9 to 5 career path that wanted to make a change. She was given an opportunity to make the change. And I just said, hey, if you wanted to vlog or vlog or what do you want to call it, your story, right? I mean, start it when you are packing up your house. You've told your landlord that you're going to move out in a couple weeks. You're going to pack up your house, and you basically film yourself, right? You start the journey there, that you've made the decision. You share your feelings. You share your story, and every week we put out some kind of content. I'll edit it. We'll upload it. We'll give you a complete day. We'll call it, this person's story to homesteading. And because we're monetized, her story would be her opportunity for money. She didn't have to start up a channel.
Well, and on top of that, like I said, what she wants to do is she wants to farm. So she she started a bunch of tomato starts this year to sell, and then was basically so busy at work that she didn't sell a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
So she ended up bringing me like 70 tomato plants. I don't even know where I'm going to put them all. So the idea was, if you really think you can make a go at this farming thing, do.
Right.
I only wanted help 3 or 4 days a week. So that gives you half the week to do your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have greenhouses and we have garden beds. And right now I'm so far behind on a lot of it. I was like, we'll figure out where, and you can do a lot of this stuff. So it was really giving her the opportunity to do all these things that she says she wants to do.
Right.
And kind of be... And I think this is where we lost her a little bit, is I made the comment of, you basically are going to get to be master of your own destiny. You're going to get a part-time wage for part-time work and a place to lay your head at night. And the rest, baby, is all on you.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I lost her. I think she... Unfortunately, we've gotten into a place in the world where people are really scared to do for themselves.
It is. And it was one of the things that she and I talked about when we were kind of off to the side having this conversation. I tried last year, because I was furloughed, I went and was like, that's it. I'm starting my own business, and I'm going to give this my full attention, and I'm going to do this stuff. I had no structure other than what I determined was my structure. And I tell you what, my personality, which is very similar to her personality, or vice versa, I couldn't do it. Nikki has the ability to kind of ebb and flow with the day and the temperatures and all that. Man, I like the box, right? I like the little box. Yes. And if I can fit in the box, I'll push the boundaries of the box. But if you give me a box, I can sit in that box,
and why he's good with cats.
yeah. But I can sit in that box, and I can make myself the master of the box. I can be the happiest mouse in the maze.
Yeah.
But there are certain people, like her, for instance, that if you set down a blank piece of paper and said, I want you to define what your box looks like, she would be, she'd get out a writing utensil and she would design up her own box. And like, this is what my happy box looks like, and I would look at it, a blank sheet of paper, and be like, well, what should the box look like? And they would say that you decide what the box looks like. And like, I can't do that.
Yeah, he's not good at this whole.
And I think this is one of the struggles she's had or having still when she's thinking about it.
So I got a couple of good comments.
Okay.
So Dennis, who always brings good comments, Dennis says, tell your friend Dennis from Wisconsin says to give it a try. Ask her what's the worst thing that can happen, and if it does, she can put it behind her. And this was one of my points to her, right. Dennis, is what I told her is come out, commit to a year, commit to 2 years. Worst case, you find out that farming isn't for you, that it's not as easy as you think, which is what I think was she was going to find. But if in 2 years you find out that I really can't do this, you're 32 years old. Go back to work. She's in an industry where, unfortunately, and I'm going to say this and it's going to sound sexist and awful, but she's in water treatment. She's a woman. So basically, she's somebody that companies hire to check those magic boxes that say, oh, yes, we hire women. She's very bright, and I'm not saying that she's not very bright and that she's absolutely worthy of hiring of her own merits. And this one being in hiring was like, you don't put on a resume that I just, I gave up and went and farmed for 2 years. We give you a title of farm management and we show all the things you do, because let's be honest, even part-time farming for us and part-time on our own, there's inventory and schedules and a million other things you got to keep up with. So she wants to go into project management. If you can prove that you can manage a 100-acre farm, by God, you can manage.
Yeah, and that was her thing. She didn't want the people management aspect. She wanted the project management.
She's not that great with people.
Yeah, and so me being an engineer, a former manager, and one of the things that she was trying to convey to me is that she was worried about losing her place in the career ladder. And
I don't think life works that way anymore.
I don't think it does either. And that's the whole other subject. But the career life or the career ladder that I grew up believing was there, I don't see anymore. And I'm only 46, so it's not like I'm one of these old timers, but I've been working for 20 years, and I can tell you in 20 years what the life and the economy that was there 20 years ago is completely different than it is today. And my point to her was, if you're 30 now and you give it a try for 32, or not for 32 years, but that's a long time. If you give it a try for 2 years, you come out the other side. One, we don't expect you to go physically or financially backwards. And I meant financially. You're not going to come out the other side and be like, well, I just spent $50,000 over the last 2 years, and I came out with a worn out, busted trailer, 2 bad knees, and I got nothing to show for it.
On the knees.
Well, so it was trying to make it financially interesting. You can keep your 401k. Like I don't have a 401k that is active, other than I'm just leaving it there, letting it grow with the market. We're not going to take money out. But like Nikki said, this guy, what I have done in the past, I was a hiring manager. I was an engineer. I was somebody that helped shape people's careers. You tell me what you want to do over a meeting, and we have these conversations, and they're called career vision for a point. My job was to enable people to chase their dreams on a career-wise. And that was what I was trying to convey to our friend, is that you're not going to, if after 2 years you decide this just isn't going to work out, it's not for me, I'm going to go back to a 9-to-5 job. Okay. If you went back in, and I think I blatantly asked this question, what would you tell a hiring company that you've done for 2 years?
Yeah.
And she was just like, well, and I was like, well, that's the problem. You don't go back in there and tell them that you decided to quit the corporate ladder and go play on a farm for 2 years. You became an agricultural business unit manager, and you list out. And one of the things she was talking about, well, I want to learn how to do scheduling and I want to get more efficient at it. And it was like, if you want to do scheduling, we can sit down and plan out day to week to month planning and how it ties to weather and temperature.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of planning that goes on farming.
We can put all this stuff into a Gantt chart. We don't, because Nikki and I don't work like that anymore. But we talk through schedules.
Yeah.
Every morning over breakfast. what's the day look like, hour by hour, and that is dependent upon time of year and temperature.
So one thing Dennis said is he agreed with something I said. He said people today are not risk takers. I teach high school and see it in both the classroom and with colleagues. And then Green Tiger Freak said, if I were single again and didn't have kids, I would jump on it. And that was one thing I had told him is I said, if I were 30 and by myself, as far as no marital commitments, no kids, yeah, you couldn't stop me. I mean, I would be buying an RV tomorrow and asking when I could get there, because it's what that's the thing I want to do in my life.
Right.
Is I want to be dirty to the elbows and sometimes pulling kids and dealing with hatching and fighting stupid roosters, and those are the things that make me tick, that make me happy.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that, and I don't know how much we were even talked about this on this, a year and a half ago, I got to that point where I was close to being on a reality TV show to go build cars full time. For, you could argue that the shop is at the top of the game at this point. But it would have required basically to give up this property. It was something that we had talked about as a risk that it didn't come to fruition, but we had talked about moving. What would we move again if she could farm full time? I could go build cars full time for a legitimate, true high end shop.
And we looked at it,
and we truly did. It didn't come to fruition, but
he made the top.
I was in the last casting call of the TV show, and they didn't give me a specific number. I know that 12 people made the show as contestants, and I got to the last round. So I'm going to say maybe in the top 20 out of thousands of people applied for the show, and it took 3 rounds of interviews over a month and a half of making YouTube videos and submitting them in, and questionnaires and phone interviews, and I didn't get there. And I'll say I watched the show. I really don't think I would have ever won. I didn't have the skill set. I was just at that point really trying to just compete and see if I could do it. Oh, that's on the screen. I was like, oh my God, there's a huge spider behind me. No, it's actually on the phone. Woo! Man, I thought there was a spider. It's literally the size of my head on the screen of the phone.
I don't know where he came from, but yes.
He walked up the tripod.
Oh, that's actually really funny.
Woo, man.
It's because nobody can see it, but it is literally the size of Caden's head.
Yeah, it was like right here on my head. It's like a little optical image. And I thought, there is a monstrous tarantula about to eat my face.
So Ray made a comment. He said, there's an old saying, when knowledge ends, fear begins. You want to restart when you're young. We bought our house in 1986 and we're still here in 63 years. It takes 10 years to get established.
Well, but that was one of the things we had talked about, is that our friend has been saving money for a down payment, and just to afford the place, to set it up. And granted, her target goal was buying a house and property for $200,000, which is not going to be a lot there. I mean, it's going to be a little starter home, unfortunately, that you're going to get maybe a couple acres, 5-10 acres. If you moved to the south before the big Russian boom, you probably could have bought a small house or a trailer or something, a nice trailer on 10 acres, because we did.
Yeah, we did.
We did, years ago. But even though that we showed up here with a house on the property already, we still put in a significant amount of money.
Well, and yeah, part of that was we put in power systems and water and barns and
But I
well, and so I'll mention this too. So we, like I said, she wanted to do the sheep thing, and we basically told her we'd put in sheep facilities and pay for it out of our own pocket.
Right, because it's going to stay here.
Because it's going to stay here. So I offered to buy fencing, which is hugely expensive right now. it's gone. I shouldn't say hugely. It's gone up significantly in the last year, but uh, I don't think we've seen the top end of that yet. We all know that lumber is hugely expensive, which we don't notice as much because Dad brings home a lot of lumber. We have stacks of lumber everywhere between our house and his house, but we offered to pay for all that. So um, basically, she had to pay for her feed and her sheep.
Yeah, but anything else, right? She was interested in putting in ducks. We've had ducks here. We still have the pens and the water facilities for ducks here. It was literally like, let's just go tidy them up and get them ready for ducks. Fill up the little kiddie pool duck pond, and go buy them and bring them home.
So Dennis made the comment, "Why spend $200,000 with the possibility of not liking rural living?" And
that was also a risk of the whole thing we talked about.
I did mention that to her, and because she had grown up on a couple acres outside of Junction City, she's got this idea that she really understands the homesteading country living life, and loves it and wants to get back to it. And I I try not to hit her in the face with too much realism, but I think there's a world of difference between living at home on your parents' property and living at home and being master of your own destiny, right? So, um, it's expensive, and that was one thing I said to her is, "Well, are you sure you're even gonna like doing whatever?" And she's like, "Yeah, no, I grew up that way." Well, you look at it from the lens of I lived at my parents' house, and there are things I could do and things I couldn't do, and all that. But I grew up in on 40 acres in Central Oregon through my teenage years, and I will tell you that when we bought 12 acres in Tennessee, and I realized, oh my God, I need all this stuff, and it wasn't enough that I spend money on the house. Now I got to come up with money for fencing and barns, and we saved for 2 years to put a barn in, and it wasn't a huge barn. It was like a 20 by 30. It was a good size.
Yeah.
And my dad came out and flew to Tennessee to spend a week with us and built said barn because I didn't have the skill set.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of things that when we bought that house that I had big dreams of doing that we never got to because we never had the time or the money.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. Putting in $200,000 on a house sounds great until you realize that this is too much work for one person.
Yeah.
Or even if the boyfriend becomes permanent.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
But he lives in an apartment, and she lives in a little rental house. And
I think he's in a rental house too.
Is he in a rental house? Anyway, let's just say that we've amassed a lot of good tools over 20 years, right? We have saws, we have generators, we have trucks, trailers, tractors, quads, extra storage, we have land. It's like, do you want to be a farmer? Yes. Check the box. Find a trailer, which again was like, you don't even have transport for a trailer other than, hey, did you know we have trucks and trailers here? So it was like, all you have to do is commit to changing how you use your time for the next this amount of your life, right? And her biggest fear, what she conveyed to me was that, what happens if I fail after 2 years? And one of the things Nikki and I took on the other side and said, what happens after 2 years? You're so successful that you look back and think, that was the point that I made the change in my life, and I can't believe that I almost said no.
My concern with it is that she's going to get to a point where either one, she's not ever going to get to do what she thinks she wants to do. Because look, as we all know, from watching the last year and a half, man, life moves fast, right? Oh boy! And we've watched prices of everything go up, and for that matter, people evolve, right? So the dream today may not be the dream in 2 years.
Right.
And that's fair. But I guess I'm not the kind of person that is good at sitting back looking at stuff and going, I wish I'd have done that. That's not, I've never been that person.
But I'll tell you this.
I go for it because I've always believed the philosophy of there is never a better time than now.
Well, I'll tell you, in the last 2 years, I'll say probably in that time frame, being 46, I was 44 at the time. That midlife point got there. You know, maybe I'll live to be 109. I don't know. I doubt it. But I got to that point.
Oh God, he'll be so senile.
I'll be so crazy, and
he's almost that old guy that yells, "Get off my lawn!" And these kids today with their music.
Yeah, I know. But I got to the point where I was 44 to 45 in that range. That I don't know if it was over a course of a time or it just happened like one point where I just realized there was stuff that I wanted to do in life that I will never do.
Yeah.
And man, I tell you what, it flat kicked me in the butt. that because when you're younger, even I think 30 and less, everybody tells you you have a long life ahead of you and you can do anything you want to do. But when you get to 35, 40, 45 in that range, you realize you've committed yourself to a path to a certain point. I'm not saying you can't change and you can't do things, but if I ever had the ambition, and I'll say it like this: when I was a kid, the dream, you know, when people were like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" My answer was an astronaut. I am a massive fan of anything space, science fiction and space, and I wanted to be an astronaut. Well, one, I other than I'm a mechanical engineer, that's as close as you're ever going to be. Maybe humanity gets to that point where they're like, "Hey, you know what we need is a mechanical engineer," and you know maybe it'd be like, "Oh, I could go." But there was a point, you know, like you know, Elon Musk was starting this whole Mars project, right? Well, I knew I had made commitments in life. I was already married at that point, and when they were looking at stuff, if I was a 28-year-old single guy that loved space stuff, maybe I would have said, I'll put my life on the line to be one of the first colonizers of Mars. But when they get to that point, you know, I'll probably be 50 or beyond where that becomes a legitimate idea that, you know what, there are going to be people that put their life on the line to go colonize Mars. I won't be that guy. And it will be like, oh man, if I was 25 versus 55, dang, I would be one of those guys that would be like, ooh, I'll go to Mars. I might die, but I might live too.
Well, so Kathy Bull made it on. Kathy
Awesome.
said,
Hi, Kathy.
my husband and I geek out on space documentaries all the time.
Okay.
So Ray said, if her boyfriend doesn't want to come, maybe she's afraid to come alone. There's a difference between failing and failure. Failing is a step to success. Failure is giving up. And I absolutely agree with that. But there's a huge difference between failing and failure. And this friend, Ray knows who it is because she was here. She does not do well with failure.
Yes.
And her version of failure and my version of failure is two different things. I agree. I don't think it's failure if something you tried didn't work and you've changed the path and moved on. To me, that's not failure.
Right.
She made a comment about how it came down to she didn't want to give up the job that she has because then it felt like she was running away and giving up. And I said, it's not giving up, or it's not running away to decide that this is no longer the pathway for you.
Right.
It's running away if you have no purpose, no direction, and you just throw your hands up in the air and run away screaming. But there's nothing